two of our members are going to be unable to join us this evening, but we do have a quorum, so we will go ahead and proceed. This is a regularly scheduled and called Greer City Council meeting, convened November the 9th, 2021. Having called the meeting to order, I'd like to ask Councilmember Riley Bettis, if he would, to lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation for council. If you would, please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, the city is truly blessed by your divine grace. We are especially grateful for blessing us with our brother Wayne, who, by his experience, wisdom, and influence, and his devotion to the citizens of Greer, has made this a better place, and all of us better people. We are thankful for Wayne's service to America, and we ask your special blessing on him and all other veterans who have served our country, especially those who were left physically or emotionally scarred. And we ask your highest blessing on those who gave their life, the ultimate sacrifice for their fellow man. We are blessed to have many honest, generous, and decent and good people in Greer and in the upstate, and this council humbly and respectfully accepts the charge entrusted to it by the citizens of Greer to conduct the business of this city, to uphold principled, virtuous, and transparent government, and to reject unethical and unwholesome activity. Help us to remember that you, not government, are our provider, and you have armed us with divine guidance, intelligent design, and absolute laws which serve as our guides. Father, please give this city, this state, and this country the courage and strength to prevail over all agents of arrogance, greed, immorality, and yes, evil, that we would be worthy of your continued love and blessings. With glory to God, I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
We thank you for joining us this evening. We don't have a lengthy meeting tonight, but a good bit of business to take care of. So thank you for joining us. We set aside time at the first of every meeting for public forum. Public forum is an opportunity for citizens of the city to come before the council to address issues that are on the agenda, to make your concerns or support known, and tonight is no exception. We have one person this evening to speak in regards to the public forum, and I will call you forward in just a moment. I do want to make clear in regards to actions that are going to be taken tonight that while there are a number of action items before us this evening, that two in particular are in regards to an annexation. So there may not be as much information as you had hoped to acquire this evening. It will go before our Planning and Zoning Commission this coming Monday. Is that correct? This coming Monday. And there will be some more opportunity at that time to speak to the Planning Commission and to acquire more information as we move forward. We take two readings of all ordinances that come before us, so this will be coming to us as first reading tonight. We have one person that has asked to speak in public forum. That would be Mr. T.J. Smith. I assume Mr. Smith? Swift, T.J. If you will just state your name and address as a matter of the record, the floor is yours.
Yes, sir. T.J. Swift, 104 Westmoreland, Greer. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are again. We're fixing to change the zoning for yet another piece of irreplaceable property in Greer and pave it over with townhouses and apartments, rentals. It's property that'll never, ever be back the way it is again. It seems like the developers have hit a real mother lode here with the design review district, because that pretty much lets them do whatever they want if it doesn't fit into what the zoning originally was. We'll just make it the way we want it. Well, that's fine, ladies and gentlemen, if it serves the interests of the citizens of Greer. But now this last year, we've seen thousands of apartments crammed in as tight as they can get them into every little nook and cranny. And I just don't see where that is benefiting the citizens of Greer. I just don't. Our streets are getting crowded. Our utilities are, if they're not already stressed, they soon will be. Nobody's looking toward the future. Who's going to pay for all this? The developers sure aren't. When the water, wastewater, and municipal water systems become overwhelmed, that'll be on us to fix that and to pay for that. And these men will just walk away with their profits. Who's looking out for us? The folks that lived here. I live in a neighborhood that I'm surrounded by people that were raised, unlike me, that were born and raised in Greer. None of them like this, I'll tell you straight up. I'm here with one of my neighbors, and I'm speaking for a lot more. We look out, we see in the newspaper every week another 200, another 200, another 300 apartments, townhomes. Where are the houses? We're not building any houses for families. We're building a transitory stopway for folks. Is that what we really want? Do we want to have a trail where folks just come and go? Is that what we want for Greer? That's not what I want. That's not what my neighbors want. Now we're going to annex another area here and do the same thing there with another design review, which pretty much lets them do whatever they want. What benefit is this going to make for any of us? I just don't see it. Now, I'll tell y'all, we're getting tired. We're very alarmed at what's going on here. Progress is going to come. There's no stopping it. I understand. Everybody understands that. But why would we let prime property that everybody in the country wants to build on, build what they're building now? You look at some of the older subdivisions off Brushy Creek and stuff that were built in the 60s. Those are fine homes. They're all on quarter acre or more, and they're nice houses. And then compare them to what they're building today. There is no comparison. Why are we letting folks do this? Why? I just don't get it. Now, I know you're all going to go ahead and do this. It's a done deal, I'm sure. One other thing I wanted to say. I read in the newspaper here, we're going to build another 250 right behind downtown down here. And the mayor is all upset because that developer was expecting to get some tax incentives. Excuse me? Why would we give anybody a tax break to build on prime property? That property there is the most prime property you could get. Why would we give them anything? If that man is not happy with what he got, trust me, and I think y'all know this, we can get somebody else in there right away that'd be happy to build there. That I don't get. And these are the kind of things that we're noticing, we're seeing. And we're not going to just sit back and let this go on. Thank you all for listening to me.
Thank you, sir. Council, contained in your packet is the minutes from the council meeting of October the 26th, 2021. I will entertain a motion that they be received.
Second.
And a motion. Have a motion and a second. Items of note for the clerk. Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. We reserve some time for those that want to petition council, and tonight is one of those opportunities for us. We are joined this evening by Marshall James. Marshall James is part of the Old School Gospel Duo, and Marshall and Leon James are African American and part Cherokee Indian, born in the upstate of South Carolina in the town of Lyman in Spartanburg County. His children, Marshall, age 7, and Leon, age 5, started singing as a family group, the James family. They would sing gospel songs at churches and even rock and roll festivals when appropriate, all across the state of South Carolina. And in the 40s, the family entered into a contest singing at the Ed Miller Baseball Park in Greer, South Carolina. They tied for first place, and in the 50s sang with an agricultural quartet at Florence Chapel High in Welford, and won a state sing-off competition in 1954, 1955, and 1956. Mr. James, if you would like to come to the podium and tell us a little bit more about the Old School Gospel Duo, we will entertain you this evening, sir.
I'd like to say good evening.
Good evening.
To everyone, to the council, Greer City Council, and to the mayor, and all of our friends out here. My name is Marshall James, and I'm one of the legendary James brothers of Lyman, South Carolina. Lyman name don't ring as much of a bell as Greer do. So we kind of claim Greer as our home base, although we have a Lyman address, because Greer, back in the day, and this was before most of y'all time, when Greer was the center place for all of the peoples on the farm to come to on a Saturday evening, after 12 o'clock on Saturdays. We would come to Punder's Ice Cream. D&D Ford was right on the corner out here. Chevrolet Place was in the middle of the block where the Punder's Ice Cream was. So we've been here in this area all of our lives. And that's why that we claim Greer as our home base. Lyman is our home. If you know anything about Lyman, if you know anything about the Shallow area, it's off of Holly Springs Road, about 2 miles out of Lyman. There's a place out there called Shallow Community. Our grandfather bought property to build a school for the black kids back in that time, in the early 1900s. He bought the property for the school. Spartanburg County supplied the material, and the men in the neighborhood built the school, a one-room school for the black kids to go to school. So that's pretty much where we come from. And now if you go out that way, and if you hadn't been out that way, drive out that way sometime, and you will see the Shallow community, Shallow Farm, Shallow Village, Shallow Church Road, and the church is still there. But what happened after the school, after they no longer used the school for going to school, they opened up a church there where the school was at. And so that's how it got its name. My grandfather named the school Shallow. That's how Shallow community got its name. Tell you a little bit about us and where we come from. But we claim Greer, because back then everybody was flocking to Greer. Even people, I talked with people even over for as Inman and Reedville, they mostly come to Greer. They didn't go to Spartanburg. They came to Greer. So we claim Greer. I've been here in Greer. I was here when Singleton Gilmore was the first council person, black council person. I was here and also helped with him through the NAACP. I was here when your first black police officer, Willie Ed Wilson, that was your first black police officer. Went to school with him right over here at Dunbar. So we have a long, long history here in Greer, and we just want you all to know that. We have received the Gene Laney Folk Heritage Award in Columbia in I think 2015. We received the Upstate Gospel Best Award for the upstate of South Carolina. On that particular day, when they had the sing-off at the TD Center there in Greenville, there were 14 groups who participated in the sing-off, and we came out ahead of everybody that was there. The song we sang, it got us like $5,000, so we're grateful for that. But the Gene Laney Folk Heritage Award, which was given in Columbia, that is one of the most prestigious awards given out by the state of South Carolina. We sang for the Senate, we sang for the House. On that day, they put us up for 3 days and 2 nights. So they put us up for that length of time. And after singing for them, and the 3rd day we were there, which was on a Wednesday, we had a concert, and it was supposed to have been held at one of the churches. Something happened to the air conditioning and didn't get to have it at the church, so they had it in the gymnasium there somewhere close by. And the gymnasium, it was $65 a head to get in, and it was standing room only. Now, that's saying a lot to us. I don't know about you all. But we've been here in Greer. Our father, he has history in your museum here about when he was on the farm out here at Lyman, and his record of planting cotton and how he planted the cotton and how he could not read, but he couldn't beat him figuring. He figured all of how much the cotton seeds weighed, how much the cotton bale weighed, how much fertilizer, how much per acre, and all of that's in your museum here. So we have a very rich history here in Greer. Plus, I'm also one of those who, at one time, when the police here in Greer were doing racial profiling, I was one with the NAACP also filed a complaint, and they were found guilty. And then a gentleman from Columbia talked to police officers on against racial profiling. I was one helped played a big part in that. So Greer has something really to be thankful for, and that was probably in the late 80s or the early 90s. Your police officers had training against racial profiling. Right out of Columbia. What we want out of Greer to do for us, we planning a celebration, and we want Greer to play much of a part of it as it can. I noticed we have a new hotel here in Greer. I don't know, we just may be the first one to get in it. But we planning a celebration for a couple of days, the first of the year. So we's asking and wanting to know what maybe the city of Greer can do for us, because everywhere we go, we represent Greer as our home base. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Mr. Merriman, I believe your report's next.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you very much. Just one item of note on the administrator's report tonight is if you haven't noticed, I wonder where you've been, the road is being milled up on Main Street. Paving set to begin tomorrow on Main, and sir? Well, there you go. They were yes, that's right. They were running the paving machine this afternoon. The heat or the striping will go down, I believe, a week after the paving set down to give it a chance to settle. Point is that it should be finished by your next council meeting. So we're real excited about that project. We think it's going to do wonders for traffic flow and aesthetics in our central business district, and continue to move people as quickly and efficiently as possible through our downtown. Mr. Mayor, that is all I had this evening.
Thank you, sir. With that, then, council, let's move to items of old business. First of which this evening is the second and final reading of ordinance number 37-2021. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of a portion of property owned by SRMC Ventures LLC located on South Highway 14 from C2 to DRD. Mr. McMahon, any new or additional information in that regard?
Yes, sir. Staff is requesting to amend Exhibit D1 and D2. That's the statement of intent and use list. The applicant is requesting to add office space in case that is a need that they have when they redevelop this site. That's all that we really have, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, sir.
For the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive.
Second.
And a second. Floor is open for discussion. Questions?
They were requesting to add office space. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am. They initially just had it as retail and research and development, and doing a little more market analysis, I believe they felt they needed to add office space potentially.
Others? Comments? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Second and final reading of ordinance number 55-2021. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by William Kim Burnett, Karen Robertson, and Cheryl Genoble located at 908 South Buncombe Road from C2 to R15. Any new or additional information, Mr. McMahon?
No, sir.
Comes with no new or additional information. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Let's move to items of new business, the first of which is the proposed street resurfacing list for 2022. Mr. Grant, the city engineer, joins us for this discussion. Mr. Grant?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. We're here to review the 2022 paving list, but before we do, I'd like to take 1 minute just to share a couple of notable highlights from 2021, which were just completed a couple of weeks ago. You may recall from last year, we specifically addressed West Phillips Road and Westmoreland Road for paving this year. These roads were narrow with high traffic volumes and poor conditions. Here's some pictures from last year just to refresh your memory. And then this is a current picture. This is a big improvement. This road went from 18 feet wide to 22 feet wide with a new cement base through a process called reclamation. So that was a good win there. And then as West Phillips, those are some pictures from last year. It had similar issues as Westmoreland. And then here's a current picture of Westmoreland. It was widened from 18 to almost 21 feet with a new cement base as well. So these roads were exceptionally good improvements for us this year, and I just want to quickly highlight those. So for 2022, Nick, you might have to help me. There we go. All right. Okay, in your package, you should have a list for Spartanburg and also for Greenville. We'll do the Greenville list first. Note that the tan-colored PCI column, PCI is the pavement condition index. It's a condition score from the evaluation we had a consultant do in 2020. This score helps us rank the streets.
Mr. Grant, if you would zoom in a little bit for the folks in the audience, please hit that plus button.
Control. How's that?
Worse. Go back to where you were. Go back to where you were.
Oh, really?
Nick, can you help him out? Just leave it on that frame, but let's zoom in a little bit if you would. Thank you. There we go. Thank you.
So anyway, the PCI score helps us rank it. Just depending on asphalt prices, we should be able to fund all the ones you see in the light blue shading at the top. That's approximately 1.6 miles. Note these are planned to be milled and overlaid with new asphalt. Also near the bottom, which, Nick, you're going to have to help me on this one. Once I zoom out. Yeah. We're planning to crack seal 3.8 miles of road in these subdivisions listed there. The total budget for the Greenville list is $492,387, split between the city and the Greenville Legislative Delegation Transportation Committee. Any questions on the Greenville list before we move to Spartanburg?
Now, this list of streets, this is from the machine that goes around and grades the roads and all that?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and this is part where Greenville County pays part, and we pay part, they
Correct.
subsidize?
Yes, ma'am.
So we got it's a little over a total of 2 miles? Is that correct?
Oh, well, 1.6 in the light blue. It's,
Yeah,
two-
okay,
2.
okay,
Yes,
in the
sir.
light blue, so it's a
Yes,
little
sir.
under two
Yes, sir.
miles in. So
Yes,
we're
sir.
right at $500,000 basically for
Yes, sir.
2 miles.
492, yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
Okay, we'll move over to Spartanburg. Can you see that okay?
No.
Nick, help. Okay. Again, the light blue shading, we should be able to fund all of these in the light blue shading. It's approximately 1 mile on the Spartanburg list. And near the bottom, you can see the crack sealing, also planning 5.3 lane miles of crack sealing in these subdivisions that are shown. The total budget for Spartanburg is $255,187. That's split between the city and the Spartanburg CTC. Note all these costs are estimated costs, and once their bids are received in January, the actual costs will determine the actual number of roads we can pave, so we may wind up paving 1 or 2 more or less depending on how the bids come in. That's really all I have for now. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Council, floor is open for discussion or questions. So, Mr. Grant, just general information. It appears that regardless of which side of the county we're working on, that it's going to be about $250,000 a mile for paving. Is this resurfacing, or is this the renovation? What method is this that we're talking?
It's
Is this
planned for mill and overlay, which is they just mill the top 2 inches off and then overlay with 2 new inches. And then Co-Transco, the consultant firm that handles the program for Greenville County, they've already started actually, they will look at each of these roads and do an assessment, and they figure out how much needs full depth patching. And then once it becomes 20% of the road, if that figure is 20% of the road, then the reclamation becomes a viable alternative. Cost-wise is about the same once you get the 20% full depth patching. So that'll be determined in the next couple of months. Is it going to be mill and overlay or reclamation?
So in mill and overlay, at $250,000 a mile, what is new construction roughly costing right now for
Last figure I heard was, well, to widen the roads about $700,000 a mile.
$700,000?
Yes, sir.
Now, I know that we're splitting costs between Spartanburg County and Greenville County and us. Those dollars from the Spartanburg, or from the counties, is this the last year that this is gonna, that we will receive dollars from them, since the road maintenance fee, Supreme Court found that invalid? Is that how that's?
I guess that would come from the counties, but
My understanding is we will, getting the budgeted funds from Greenville County, but beyond that, I don't know the answer to that. So I think that's still up in the air. Spartanburg County, this is the last year.
So,
Is that right, Steve?
well, actually, Spartanburg County, this doesn't include any road fee funds from Spartanburg County. They told
Oh,
us
these are
that.
the C fund funds.
Yes, this
Yeah,
is-
this is not, yeah, this isn't the road, the
Okay,
collected
so
road
that's
fees.
I got you.
That's still a program.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Others? This is an action item for the purpose of discussion. I'll entertain a motion to receive. And second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. Mr. Grant, it may be appropriate just to give us another overview, and I'm sure that our audience may be interested as well too. Ms. Albert raised a good point that we don't just go out and ride around and look at these roads to determine which ones that we think need to be done. There is a scientific method to this methodology here about how we determine which roads get paved. Do you want to expand on that just a little bit
Sure.
for us?
We hired a company called, I can't think, it was three initials, Utility Consultants or something out of Ohio. They have a van with all kind of bells and whistles and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of computers and sensors, et cetera. And they rode all of our streets. It takes like 4K video and pictures of all the cracks and the whole condition of the road. And then they run it through some proprietary software that gives it a condition score based on all the irregularities that the computers and all see, and then generates the score. And then we've been historically, paving or repairing the roads that's in their worst condition first.
Thank you, sir. I have a motion and a second. Any other comments, questions, discussion in that regard? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan.
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Council, we're gonna move to ordinance number 56-2021. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of properties owned by Next Gen Investments LLC, located on South Main Street and Roscoe Drive by 100% petition and to establish a zoning classification, of DRD for said property. As we typically do, I would ask by show of hand, is the owner of the property or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? All right, so noted. Mr. McMahon, information in regards to ordinance number 56-2021.
Yes, sir. Just so I can point out, ordinance 56 is related to this corner parcel and the larger parcel, and 57 is a portion of the two parcels adjacent to it. What the applicant is requesting to do is to rezone or annex property and zone it to DRD to build up to 296 apartment-style units. It's going to be a mix of single-family detached, duplexes, and townhomes. Here's the future land use map for the property. This property is adjacent to a traditional neighborhood along a neighborhood corridor. And here's the street view. And here's the site plan. As you'll see right here, DOT has already received the traffic impact analysis for this project, and I'll get to that in a few seconds to kind of go over what the recommendations are. They will have one access off of Main Street. It will be a right in, right out only. Then two full access on Roscoe for the entire project. So within the statement of intent, what they're requesting is up to 296 attached dwelling units. There'll be, your cottage style. We have elevations, and I'll get to those in 1 minute for you. Units will range between 700 to 1,500 square feet. The density is roughly 8.5 units an acre. The complex will have two clubhouses ranging roughly 1,500 square feet per clubhouse with amenities such as pools and grill stations. So here are the elevations for the project. This is what they're proposing. They have a cottage style, and then the townhome unit is right here. Then they kind of have townhomes and then a carriage style house. Each of these has kind of got like a little patio that's connected to them, so they will have like individual outdoor space per each unit. So the recommendations from the TIA, DOT did review this, and they do confirm that they are comfortable with proceeding forward with the recommendations. So if the project were to move forward and it is developed, they'll conduct another study at that time to see if a traffic signal is warranted at that intersection of Roscoe West and Main. Right now, it's not warranted with the study, they're saying it's still not warranted. DOT is going to require an additional study at the end to make sure that everything is still in compliance with their requirements. Like I said, on the Main Street access, it's just going to be a right in, right out only on that access. That's all the information that I have, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, sir.
Okay. Council seems to be appropriate. I believe Mr. Oakley has joined us this evening for a discussion on this project. Before we get into questions or comments, sir, if you'd like to take the podium, I think it'd be appropriate to go ahead and make your presentation at this point in time.
Just click for this, right? Good evening. Thank you guys for having me. David Oakley, 735 Euclid Circle, Birmingham. Mayor, Council, thank you guys for having us. Really love the city of Greer and enjoyed spending time here. Want to just introduce you to Leo Residences. This is a proposed, we call it a cottage-style rental community. You'll hear the word apartment used, but we really feel like it feels more like a neighborhood. We put a lot of passion and effort into the design and quality of the materials that go into this community. I totally hear the opinions of the audience and completely understand. And first and foremost, I want you to know that we're good people. It may not, you don't know us, but we want to do business in good towns where there's good people. And we found that to be true here. And we are not a merchant builder. And by definition, a merchant builder is a developer who builds and then sells. We are long-term holders, and we look for townships and municipalities similar to Greer, where there is soul, there's culture, there's a richness, and we found that here, and we love it here. We are staying in the hotel tonight. Love the new hotel. Just a little bit about this community. This kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of the rooftops, the landscape. We are going to develop 1, 2, and 3 bedroom cottage-style homes. They will range in square footages. We really cater to young people as well as young families, and we also cater to quite a bit of seniors. We found that the cost of a home has gone up. The cost of each one of these cottages just roughly, just so you know, will cost us around $250,000. They're not cheap to build, but these are homes for people. The idea actually came from, I have aging parents. My mother's a retired school teacher and guidance counselor. My father's a retired electrician. They both wanted to be near the grandkids, and they didn't have any business buying a home. And so if this development had existed in the town where we live, we would have built one, but they would have moved into it. So the idea kind of came from, what can we develop that meets the market and meets the needs of a community? You have older people who have equity in homes here who don't want to leave their Sunday school class or go to a different Walgreens. And we found that a senior population loves living in our type of community. Younger people who aren't really sure about buying a home or the cost of a home is too expensive. This is a great launch pad into a town and city like Greer to give them the opportunity to live in a great place like Greer and grow into that community. You guys saw the site plan, roughly 35 acres. We've planned up to almost 300 units, but we've mapped out 270 here with a large clubhouse, close to 3,000 square feet, and a large pool. Our communities are master metered for utilities. We have a professional management staff with maintenance supervisors, on-site grounds people, a manager full-time, and leasing agent. So we are very much into the service of our residents, and that's one of the reasons people want to call it home, because they don't have to take care of the maintenance and they don't have to take out the trash. We have valet trash that picks up your trash every day except for Sunday. So it's really a high amenitized, high service oriented community that should thrive in a city like Greer. You guys saw a little bit of the elevations, but I want to jump to, just given time. We do 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. Our townhomes are 2-story units. We tend to lean more towards a 1-story living environment. young people, older people have found we don't like stairs. We also offer private backyards with turf, artificial turf, and a nice natural rock and a concrete patio for your own grills with a 6-foot fence, so privacy. You know, COVID just kind of amplified the want and desirability of this product, but even before COVID, this product was popular. We're finding that, you know, people aged, my mother's 71, they don't want to move into a Brookdale or an assisted living facility until they just have to, right? And so this really offers a place where you can continue to live independently with young people, with older people. This is a development, real live pictures of a deal and development we did in Huntsville, Alabama, to show you just sort of the landscape, the streetscape. We come in and do sidewalks. We're very high on the walkability of the community. We want to tie into sidewalks. We want people riding their bikes to downtown. A great stat is our retention rate for this type of community is 80%, whereas your typical garden-style 3-story or 4-story walk-up garden community is typically 50%. So we are a low-impact, low-density, high-retainage community, and that's good for us. We don't like a lot of turnover. We want community. We place people in the community through a ministry that we are highly involved with, where we have small groups in the community who help build that community out. A loved one passes away, someone gets married, we celebrate those times. We're there for each other. So we are all about knowing your neighbor. Thus, the name behind our brand is Leo. May sound a little corny, may be a little cheesy, but it's aligned with our values, and that means love each other. We developed this brand last year through just everything our country went through, and we established that we just need more love. We should love our neighbors. It's biblical. And so why don't we start by developing communities that start there? This is an example of a 2-bedroom cottage. You know, our residents get to experience front porches, covered front porches, sidewalks, private backyards, lots of windows, lots of light. This is a 1-bedroom freestanding cottage. This is another 2-bedroom freestanding cottage. We love having a lot of greenery and pocket parks. We aren't into a lot of hardscapes. We don't want just parking lots with cars. We're really trying to appeal to what every human being wants, and they love space, open space, freedom to breathe, but also having extra room between your neighbors. This is an example and is what our pool and clubhouse will look like, with outdoor grilling stations, fire pits, a place for neighbors to mingle. This also includes a local and one mailbox center where we offer package services. So if you do some shipping with Amazon or other sources, it comes to this main clubhouse and mail center. This is the interior of what the clubhouse looks like. High-end finishes. This is open to residents 24/7 except for on the weekends and with key card access only. This includes a fitness center, which has been super popular. This jumps into the interior of units. Our units have higher end finishes. We're really trying to cater to people who want to live here long term. We don't want just transient people. Typically, what keeps people there are hardwood floors, high 15.5 height ceilings, quartz countertops, stainless steel appliances. So we're really trying to bring items and materials that last into the buildings. We integrate with high-end technology, so Nest thermostats, the Ring doorbells. We found it been very popular, so that if you're away, if you're chasing the grandkids or you want to go to the beach and someone comes to your doorstep, you're getting an automated photo to your text, through text to your phone. You can control your thermostats with your phone in the event it gets cold and you don't want your pipes to burst, but you're out of town. You can control your thermostats, which we found to be very helpful and energy efficient. This is a master bath, 2 sinks, quartz countertops. We have nice walk-in showers, We also have garden-style tubs. It gives you an example of the kitchen here. Abundant counter space and cabinetry with a nice island here for cooking. This is probably my favorite, which has been, survey says, residents say this is their number one favorite part of the community is the private backyards. We access their trash through a gate into their private backyard where they have a container with their trash, and our valet services pull that out, and that's their one and done. We don't have to get in their backyard to do their lawn maintenance because it's artificial turf, so we're non-invasive. People love this service. Another look at a backyard example. And just a brief, why this product over what we're used to seeing. We want to be different. We don't want to be just another garden-style merchant developer. Not knocking them. There's a lot of good people who do that. Our goal and ambitions are to do something different, and that is to build a brand, to build what people want, to be a fabric of the local community. We want people eating downtown, walking to downtown, going to the festivals, being citizens of the community. And this really serves as a great landing pad for a lot of people. Citizens of this town transition. We all transition through life and age. And there's nothing wrong with moving out of a home that you might have owned for 20 or 30 years and moving into a community like this to stay in this town. There's nothing wrong with a younger person taking a job here or wanting to commute somewhere else because they love this town and love this city and living in a place like this, then going and buying a new home when they can afford it. So we're really trying to achieve that through this type of development. This gives you a little bit of stats that we've run on who lives here. 26% young adults. 18% is kind of our most narrow target market who lives with us, which is more families who have kids. And then third, our most popular age group is that the mature adults. And that's it. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. Appreciate it. If you'll just stand by if there's any questions, we'll come back to you. Council, for the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
And a second. All right, floor is open for discussion. Questions or comments, either of Mr. McMahon, or if necessary, we'll bring Mr. Oakley back.
Mr. McMahon, does this include the area of that property with the red farmhouse? Is that part of this?
Yes, sir, it is the red farmhouse. There we go. Right here.
It is right there.
Yes, sir.
And this is kind of across the street from the Dollar General, or Family Dollar, I think it is.
Yes, ma'am.
I believe when I was first thinking of it, I was thinking it was on the other side, kind of across from Mudd's. So I was getting kind of confused when I was looking at the picture. How far down is that access out onto Roscoe? Roscoe is a very narrow road, and I'm kind of surprised that the traffic study, didn't you say that had been done and they were okay with it? I do go down to Roscoe quite often, and it is a very narrow, like trying to pass somebody. You do have to kind of move over to the edge of the road. So, and then coming out onto Roscoe, it seems like that might be a tight squeeze getting on there, especially with the way the traffic's building up around the area.
Yes, ma'am. So DOT, what they looked at were the intersections to see how they were going to function. Roscoe is roughly, the portion that would be in the city is roughly 1,700 feet. So if that road is not up to city standards, it will have to be brought up to city standards. So that is kind of when we get into the civil plan review, we'll have the road width taken at that time. We'll do that review. And if it's a 20-foot road and our standard is going to be 26, they'll have to bring up their portion to 26.
I know at one of the townhome developments down on Brushy Creek Road, they made like a turning lane.
Yes, ma'am.
For easy access without messing up the traffic.
Did you say a right in and a right out on Roscoe?
The right in and right out is on Main.
Main?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Main, okay. Others?
You know, when I first learned about this project, I think there's one other development that I know of that's similar to this. It's in Greenville County. It's not in a municipality, but I've driven through it, and it's a fine looking place. You'd never imagine it being rental properties. There was a couple things that were brought up tonight that I think we should always address. And it is good to have this concern about the infrastructure, the utilities. Before any development is done in our city, we hold a large meeting with everybody that will be impacted. That would be, of course, the city, the departments within the city, our Commission of Public Works, the school, proper school districts, highway department, so on and so forth. And at that point in time, if there is concerns, they will be addressed. It could stop a development, or there could be some changes made to the development that helps, but at no point in time are we trying to overrun our infrastructure, sewer and water. But this will all be Commission of Public Works, correct?
Yes, sir.
And now, have you had the PAC meeting yet?
We have had the PAC meeting. They have received comments. So right now, they're just kind of going through the zoning process. It will still come back to us, or to Planning Commission, for a final development plan, kind of once they work out some of the civil issues with review.
Okay. Has anyone expressed any concerns about utilities, about schools, anything like that?
No, sir.
Okay.
Let's point out as well, Mr. Arrowood, this is simply the annexation
Right,
side as well, too.
exactly. And then the other thing I think was brought up was the DRD, and that is in no shape or form just, well, we can do what we want to do. DRD is actually more restrictive. The plans are submitted prior to any development beginning, and the developers, whether it's this any other, they have to build to that plan.
Yes, sir.
So.
Others?
And that's why we're requesting DRD for a project like this, because that gives us the greatest amount of control and input as things continue to progress, correct?
It does give us a little more control over the project, and it's also kind of a unique project where it doesn't fit traditional zoning. It's not just your typical subdivision. It's kind of a unique, it's not really an apartment complex. So DRD is the best fit for it to kind of get everything in there that protects the city, gives us, the ability to make changes as we saw fit. This project had started, I believe, back in April, where we started talking with the developers, and it's just now getting to you at this point.
Can you just very quickly say one more time what the process and the factors that will go into what, if anything, happens to Roscoe as things continue to progress?
Yes, sir. As they submit civil plans to the city, if the project does move forward, what we'll do is we'll review Roscoe, and if the pavement width is only 20 feet and the standard is 26, they'll have to bring that road up to 26 feet along their portion. And then if there's additional right-of-way that has to be dedicated, that has to be dedicated to the city at the time of granting the
And that will be
permit.
on them to do.
Yes, sir.
And can you say one more time, so, assuming things do move forward, the development gets done, how is the reevaluation for a light at Roscoe? How will that happen?
So DOT is looking at, if the development does move forward and it is completed, at that point, reevaluating the intersection at Roscoe West and Main and doing a 12-hour count to see how that traffic is impacting at that time, to see if the warrants are met to install a traffic signal.
Now, when I'm looking at this one view, that is where, I know one of them says 200 and something, and then the other one says 200 something, the next one, I think. So this is all one piece of property where it will actually be about 500 homes?
So it's a total of 296. Let me
Uh-huh.
get you. And so it's these two parcels right here, the entire parcel of the
Right.
one at the corner and this one, and then it's a
Uh-huh.
portion of these two right here. The total acreage is roughly 34 and a half acres.
Oh, okay.
Others? Questions? Comments?
I actually really like the product itself. I think it's unique, and I can see where the draw is for the market and the demographics that they're laying out. We could have a broader discussion, of course, about apartments and townhomes, but I don't think there's anything like this, and I think it's very unique in the offering. I think the concern that I've already heard from a couple people, and that we'll need to make sure we keep a good eye on, is the traffic and the roads there, for sure.
No, I don't know if that exit on Roscoe could come down any further. It just seems so close to the corner there of Main Street.
How far down is
I
it?
know they got one. Huh? I know
We
they
haven't
got
gotten
one.
scaled drawings yet. I would say probably
Conceptually right now.
Where's it?
300 to 400 feet.
Okay, it's on further down. Okay. So they got 3 exits. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. One will be on Main Street.
Uh-huh.
That's the
Yeah,
right
no,
one right
Main.
out, and
And
then
then right down.
one there and one
And
here
then
on
one
Roscoe.
further down, okay. But when I was referring to, I believe that this 56 and 57 are related.
Yes, ma'am. I
Yeah,
apologize.
that's what I was
I may have
wondering.
misunderstood
Yeah.
that. Yes, ma'am.
So I believe when I probably misunderstood, but I thought there's going to be like 296, not 500. 500 is a lot of houses. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
it's
does
total-
look
it's
like a
total.
very, very unique neighborhood, though. I mean, it doesn't look like your typical straight down the road townhomes and everything. It is sort of portioned out, but it seems like a lot of houses, and when you think about almost 500, then you're looking at probably 700 to 1,000 vehicles.
It's not 500. right?
This project is just 296. We had to break it up
But
into
when
two
we're into
separate.
both of them,
Yeah.
when we're into both of them, because it's actually related. I mean, it's same.
Both of them need 296.
Combined.
Combined, right, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No,
No,
combined.
combined is 296?
Yes, ma'am. The re-
Okay, because I'm reading up here the 296 and then the other. Okay,
It's
so
just-
it is less than
It's
500.
just a different,
Yes, and
Gotcha.
that is up to 296. We're currently sized for 297.
Okay, all right, very good, very good. Yeah.
Total for the whole development.
Okay, because I was understanding in the beginning that it was 2 something, and then when I'm looking, I said, okay, we're close to 500, 600 houses here. Okay, all right, gotcha. Thank you. Glad I clarified that up for myself. Thank you.
questions? Comments? Discussion? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, the companion piece of property here is the first reading of ordinance number 57-2021. This is the ordinance to provide for the annexation of a portion of 2 properties owned by True North Properties LLC located on South Highway 14 by 100% petition and to establish a zoning classification of DRD for said properties. This description, as you will see, is the same as above, so this is basically the same project. This is information that we have just reviewed in regards to these 2 pieces being combined and 296 units, approximately 296 units for both pieces of property. Any new or additional information in that regard?
No, sir. Happy to answer any questions.
Just for a matter of record, is the owner or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? So noted. All right, any new or additional information y'all might want to add on this piece of property? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for the purpose of discussion.
So moved.
And a second. Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas, Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, let's move to the first reading of ordinance number 58-2021. This is an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a development agreement by and between the City of Greer, South Carolina and Avidar Oakley Development Group, LLC, or its assigns with respect to infrastructure improvements inside the City of Greer and other matters related thereto. Mr. Merriman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the development agreement between the applicant for the properties in the city whereby we agree to $1,000 per residential unit to offset a number of the capital costs that come with annexation and development.
Comes with information from the administrator, action item required. I'll entertain a motion for first reading of ordinance number 58-2021.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan.
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, let's move to the first reading of ordinance number 59-2021. This is an ordinance to adopt a revised business license ordinance in accordance with the Business License Standardization Act, 2020 Act 176. Mr. Seifert joins us this evening with information in that regard.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you're aware, we met last week to hold a workshop to address this ordinance that we'll be bringing to you tonight. So we do bring this ordinance for your consideration this evening, and we're happy to take any questions you may have for discussion.
For the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive. And a second. Floor is open for discussion.
At your desk, there is a worksheet where I did a scenario of contractors. Contractors are in class 8.
It'll be 8.1 and 8.15 right now. Yes, sir.
All of what we are voting on this evening is mandated by the state. It's nothing that we can modify. With the state legislation, if we adopt it as is, you'll see that our domiciled, is that how they?
That's the term they're using
The
now,
domiciled contractors in the city of Greer will be paying a lot more possibly in their business license fees because they are going to be required to pay a fee based on their gross revenue or gross sales for an entire year, no matter where the job is, with the exception of if they're required to buy a business license in another municipality or a county that may require a business license. The only thing that we have that we can do to try to rectify this situation is adjustment of the rates. And I am not an expert on business license and rates and everything you have to comply with, but I'm pretty sure David and his staff, they are. They've been in this. They've been in the thick of this for a very long time. But if you look at the example that I gave, and it's a very simple example, and you can throw a lot of different factors in there that would adjust the bottom line. But if you look, contractor A and contractor B being the non-domiciled contractor, they're bidding on a project in the city, and the contractor A is at a significant economic disadvantage by the way this new law could affect them. So I would hope that council would support asking staff to go back and try and figure a way for us to adjust the rates for contractors, because in the long run, probably what will happen is the contractors we have in our city will they'll move their home location. They won't, because it's going to be too expensive for them to operate. They're not going to be, the playing field will not be level when it comes to bidding projects. So it's not to amend the ordinance as it's written because we can't. It's just to say staff.
It would be a separate action to adjust the rates.
Yes, it would. It would. But
No, sir. If I may just jump in for a second. In the ordinance, the rates themselves start in Appendix A. So it would just be amending one line item in Appendix A as it relates to contractors, which is 8.1, 8.15.
That's my question. Is this the only business that anomaly raises its ugly head?
Yes, because of the interpretation that was applied under the previous administration, that where this started was the interpretation applied was the resident contractors. Resident was a term they used prior. Now they're using domicile. That they would pay on business licenses on the work they did inside the city limits. The original intent of the model ordinance produced by the Municipal Association was that they did pay on 100% of the revenue to include non-incorporated areas such as the counties, that revenue would be included in their resident place of business, using the term today, domiciled. The previous administration said we will just tax them only on what they do inside the city limits. So they have been getting a reduced revenue, getting an exclusion for revenue that was not really intended in the Municipal Association model ordinance. And that specific piece has been codified in state law and there is no interpretation. The codification of state law says that the definition of gross income includes all the non-incorporated area and all the all the revenue that the business earns, less what they pay another taxing jurisdiction. So that's where Mr. Arrowood is saying, that is codified, so we don't have that interpretation anymore. So I don't want to speak for you, but the intention that I think Mr. Arrowood is trying to bring is that those domiciled businesses will, in theory, pay a higher rate because there's more revenue being attributed to the city under the new state law. So he is proposing adjusting the rate down so that they are maintaining a similar tax burden than what they previously paid. So I'll just give a quick overview. There are certain tenets and principles in business license law that they've gone to court, they've been tried, and they've been upheld. One of those is that we must treat all the businesses fairly and equally. If they are carved out, there must be some specific reason to do so. We have a handful of those. Some of those are codified under state law. They are required to be handled a certain manner. So those are some of the ones that have been set aside from our regular rate class schedule of 1 through 7. So we are under this tenet of treating everyone fairly and equally. One of the other tenets is that non-domiciled businesses pay a double rate than a domiciled business. And some of that is to address the issue where the domiciled business is paying property tax. So for instance, in a construction, as an example, you have a construction business, they're domiciled here, they have a business, and then they also have sites where they are doing their construction. So they're paying taxes on the property, and then they have the business license tax. But that is supporting the services that business receives, be it fire, police, public service, or whatever. The non-domiciled business, when they open a construction site, that same level of service is provided to that construction site. But because they are not paying those property taxes, then it has been upheld that under that same level of service, that under the case law, that the business license tenant is that they can double that rate so that they're paying a fair amount for that same level of service that they are receiving at that construction site for a non-domiciled business.
The rate for a non-domiciled business is based on the projected project cost?
Correct. So, and that is true for any business. Construction is a little different because they have a contract that says, okay, you want a house, I'll build you a $150,000 house. It goes through the calculations and there's business license tax associated with it. A Walmart is the same process, but it's, gross sales coming in through the store. All the calculations and the principles behind it are all the same. So it's just a different calculation method with a different rate. And those rates are determined, they're set by council, and they are graduated, and that graduation is based on the IRS tables. So a lot of this information that we're dealing with is mandated by the IRS, it's mandated by state law now. So we've lost some of that flexibility. What we can control as a municipality are the rates that we apply to those classes.
You looked at those rates to see what would be adjustable and get it more
I've done that. To get an actual number is relatively impossible right now. So we have to work in a hypothetical mindset. So, and the reason it's impossible is I can't run analysis on a revenue that's not reported to us. And that's the scenario we're coming out of, where those domiciled businesses have been reporting to us the revenue, the revenue that they earn in the city. We have that information. What we don't have are those domiciled businesses that are doing business outside the city that has not been reported to us. So I've just run some scenarios. I've run two based on our domiciled businesses versus our non-domiciled businesses.
Well, before we go there, David, I've done the same thing, and it said the math is correct. So this gives a very simple example of what I was talking about. But in my thinking about, and maybe this is too simplistic, but a business license helps to pay for services that business operating in the city may receive. For instance, David mentioned Walmart. Well, if a Walmart pays for the gross revenue that they generate at that one location, and that helps pay for police for all the reasons they have to go down there, fire, increased traffic load on the streets where we have to go in and repair and replace and so on and so forth, and things like that. Well, now, what I guess you would say the old administration, there's a lot of municipalities that does it the way we've always done it. You are asking a business, a contractor business, the way it is now, before we make changes, is that you pay on the business you do in the city, which I think is fair. If you're paying for the services that you could possibly have to have. But if you're doing, and I'm going to talk in some round numbers, but these are real numbers from real contractors. If your gross revenue is, say, $10 million, 30% of that work historically is done within the city limits of Greer, and possibly some other areas that require you to have a business license. But 70% is not. 70% is in unincorporated areas. So now, the way the new law is, without adjustment to the rates, contractors are going to wind up capturing that 70% or $7 million, and having to pay a business license fee on that, plus what they're also doing in the city. So it automatically puts everyone that's operating out of a municipality at an economic disadvantage, because the contractor that's not in an incorporated area, and he's not having to buy a business license, he's not having to pay all this, only if he goes and works in an incorporated area or a county that requires a business license.
Have we inquired to other towns or cities if they're handling this Same problem?
Yes, sir. I had staff call every city in Spartanburg and Greenville County today. In every city between the two counties, there were 6 that were doing it in this manner. And of those 6, one has stated that they will continue to do so. That is now contrary to state law. So again, where we're coming, or where Mr. Arrow was coming from, is we can't address that because it's in state law. But to make the payment fair of taxes, Mr. Arrowwood is coming from the angle of reducing the rate that we charge for that business license. And again, please, I don't propose to speak for Mr. Arrowwood, but
No, that's
trying to
fine.
get you to understand
No,
that
yeah,
we're talking about a rate structure, not.
All this, the law even says that you can't, with classes, 1 through 7, we can't, what's the term? You can't come out ahead by more than
Yeah, the changeover has to be revenue neutral. So our overall class structure that we're proposing for you tonight will decrease by 5 cents per thousand. And that rate structure gets us to a revenue neutral standpoint going through this transition from our old ordinance to the new ordinance under state law.
But then you move into Class A, which that's where contractors fall. It's not covered by that. So you can, the way state law is, and I don't know if this was intentional or what, but anyone who sells a business license stands to make a great deal off that class.
If they were operating in the manner that we were, and it's about half and half in Spartanburg and Greenville County. Mostly in Spartanburg County. Greenville County only had one of the municipalities.
So did any give you an indication they were going to adjust rates anyhow?
They did not, no, sir. So what I did this afternoon and before the meeting started, I was looking at just some scenarios that, as Mr. Arrowwood said, in discussions he has had, that some of these businesses have 70% of their income outside the city limits. The scenario I ran before, I was just looking at 50%. So, and I'm looking at total. I'm not looking at any single business. So, and bear with me, and I'll repeat any of this that you may need repeated. The domiciled businesses inside the city of Greer, and these are in totals, so we're still in compliance with FOIA. I'm not relieving or not giving you any information that is not able to. So we're good here. The domiciled businesses reported revenue of just under $47.7 million for all the businesses that we have in that contractor rate. We'll say $47.7 million. They paid a tax of $77,600. So the $77,000 tax rate over the $47.7 million is an effective tax rate of 0.163%. So you double that as a rate structure to non-domiciled businesses. Non-domiciled businesses reported $262.7 million in revenue for a total tax of $864,000, a little less than $864,000. So that tax rate is 0.329, which is that doubling of the domicile tax rate, which is one of the pillars and tenets under business license law. So starting with 50%, if these domicile businesses had an increase of revenue reported of 50%, that $47.7 million would then be $71.5 million, just because they would be reporting 50% more revenue to the city than they did prior. For them to pay the same tax burden at $77,000, that tax rate drops from 0.163 to 0.108. Now that is something you can do as a council, you can set the rates. Here's the effect. If you take that lowered 0.108 rate and you double it, and that becomes 0.216 for non-domicile businesses, they pay $296,000 less than they would have under the rate structure as it is. And that's at 50%. Using Mr. Arrowood's numbers at 70%, those non-domicile businesses would pay $362,000 less than they do under the current rate structure. So again, that is something you can do. I just want you to be aware of the effects. That if you lower the domicile business license rate, the doubling effect on the non-domicile, they would be paying less also, and the city would be, roughly, $300,000 to $360,000 just using these numbers on a total basis, not any single individual business.
I don't know how many contractors we have in the city, but if we leave this like this, I wouldn't have my contracting business in the city.
That is certainly a business
That would be
option.
foolish.
But when you do come inside the city and do work, that rate is double. Some of the other scenarios around, where Mr. Arrowood's scenario that's in front of you focuses on 100% in the city, 100% outside the city. Those are two extreme ends. Another scenario I ran, and this is again all hypothetical, split that revenue equally among all three divisions of where the contractor is in the city, contractors in the county, and the contractors in another city. In that scenario, the taxes that they all pay to any individual municipality are within a couple $1,000s of each other. So in the grand scheme of a $10 million revenue, it's virtually identical across all three taxing jurisdictions. This is just on how you split the revenue between whether the contractor is in the city or in the county or in another taxing jurisdiction altogether. Those numbers can be, that mix of where that revenue is can be 100% zero, or it can be 33. It can be split in any number of ways. I'm just trying to get some frame of reference to have a healthy debate.
So to Mr. Bettis's point, do we have any idea how many contractors we have inside the city?
I didn't print the whole report. It was 17 pages. I just printed the last report. This includes some contractors that work out of their home, which are very small, but the total number is 37 that reported in the revenue year that we're required to follow under the state law, which was ending April of 2020. We had 37. And non-domicile, we have 423.
The other thing that bothers me, if we don't try to do something about the rate, is like I said earlier, we are collecting taxes that originally was to provide services caused by the impact of that business operating. Well, now we're collecting taxes that for nothing that's occurring in the city. It's just additional revenue.
What's your suggestion, David?
I don't want to put David on the spot, so I'll answer that one. Good job. Mr. Bettis, to put it simply, and I think Mr. Arrowood is exactly right on a couple things. One, this is a tough pill to swallow, and I think that's part of the issue. The other thing is that, to a large degree, thankfully, our hands are tied by the Business License Standardization Act, and this is what we're considering today. But to answer your question, Mr. Bettis, I do believe that what has happened, and I'm going to try and put it in as simple terms as possible because I'm not a business license expert either, is that specifically in that industry, that for the last number of years, they have paid actually an artificially low business license that is now catching up to us very fast under the new law. And if it had always remained the same, you would have paid that lower rate. But since the state law has come in and clearly defined what was kind of marginally defined in the past, we kind of have to interpret it as it is, and there's really no room for interpretation. So that artificially low rate that was paid for a number of years, that particular industry is this is a true up year, and I think that's the issue.
The rate could always have been adjusted by the municipality.
And what I'm saying is by doing it again, by leaving it as it is, it's only prolonging a larger problem that creates more inequity across all industries.
That doesn't make sense.
I mean,
it's because if you go back to Jay's logic, the revenue generated from a business license is to help pay for services that business probably, or businesses like that, will be required from that municipality. Does that make sense so far? So now we're going, and we have said, domiciled contractors, the business you're doing in the city, you pay this rate. And they have. And so, in my simple thinking, that's what that fee is for, to pay if somebody gets hurt on a job site, fire department, if there's a theft, police comes out, whatever services we offer, it goes to. But when you have a contractor that is doing a job in Wilkes County, North Carolina, where he doesn't have to buy a business license, and it's a large job, he's got to capture that and bring it back to Greer as if the work was done in Greer. And without us doing anything, we're saying that's okay with it. We're okay to take the dollars in because it's a windfall for us. And I don't think that's the way our city has operated. We've always been pro-business, and we've always tried to make the playing field even as best we could. So that's why I'm saying that we just need to try to find some way that where we are allowed to, which is very narrow, but to try to it's not so much the rate, it's the amount paid, the dollar amount paid by each city contractor.
In your, you don't have the paper. If you will scroll through to page A1 in the ordinance, and that's where the rates schedule starts. If you don't have that in front of you, I'll just describe it. Using or looking at the column that this the rate per 1,000, which is where we're focusing the discussion on possibly lowering that rate. From rate class 1 to rate class 7, that per 1,000 rate is $1.30 up to $1.90. Contractors at $1.55. They're right there in the middle of rate classes 1 through 7. And I just did some quick math here on the calculator as I was just standing here, so I won't say this is 100% accurate, but it's going to be close, I think. To include the revenue under state law that we have to, but to maintain a similar tax burden that Mr. Arrowwood is addressing reduces that tax rate. And that percentage works out that would take their $1.55 per thousand that they pay now and would drop it to about 91 cents per thousand. So when you look at that, and this is to Mr. Merriman's comment that is unfair across the whole rate structure, is we have one business that is so far lower than any other business in anywhere in our rate structure at 91 cents per thousand, when the lowest profitable business under IRS statistics is at $1.30.
Well, but the 91, that's that rate. And what I think we have to concern ourselves with for all of the citizens is the total revenue generated. And then when you look at the contractors, or city contractors, what you have to look at is not the rate, but the amount, is it close to, equal to what they've been paying? And I know that's going to
Well,
vary.
that's how you get to the rate.
Yeah, but if you say, well, 91 cent is the rate, and it's not fair because it's
Too
low, it's too low, but they're paying basically the same thing they've paid in the last 3 years, then it doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter. Now, I just think that thankfully we've got a little bit of time before business license have to be renewed, and I think that the staff should try to find a way.
Well, here's what I suspect, Jay. You have a vested interest in this.
Sure.
And we're lucky that you spotted it. I just wonder how many other councils have even looked at it, and the actual ramifications won't come until all these new business license applications go out.
That's right.
And that's when all these contractors and municipalities will say, well, what's going on here?
And aside on that is that every contractor I've talked to in the city, they pay based, they all generally pay their license fee the same way. Come in or paperwork plus the base rate. And then as jobs go along for the next 12 months, they do an upgrade on their business license.
Sure.
And so now you're going, you're saying, well, if you use the example that I've got here, as far as cash flow, contractor A is going to be paying what, over $12,000 by the end of April, instead of if that was being divvied out through each job, he's having to pay that right up front.
Jay, help me understand. I may be totally thinking about this wrong, but help me understand how this example is different than, say, a caterer who's based inside the city, doing a job inside the city versus doing a catering outside the city, paying business license.
And I don't know how a caterer I don't know how their business license is calculated.
The caterers that are coming into the city, let's start with the restaurants and caterers that are here are paying the resident rate or the domicile rate. The ones that are coming into the city and catering that are domiciled elsewhere, they're paying the double rate.
And so like that caterer who's doing a job inside the city versus outside the city, what, if any, is the difference on how it's calculated on those two?
The calculation is the same, except the rate is doubled. The basic calculation on the per thousand rate is, so if $100,000, divide that by 1,000, and then you multiply that number by the per thousand rate, $30, $40, $50 is where we are in the rate structure that we have in front of you proposed. So going back to Jay's, so we have an idea of the numbers we're talking about. If the domiciled contractors do indeed have to, if that 70% is accurate and they end up paying on revenue 170% greater than where they are today, the business license taxes that goes from 47 million to 81 million. So we're looking at $34 million. That $34 million of revenue is generating $50,000 in taxes. So, and to include that $50,000 in the overall scheme to make it revenue neutral is not going to really adjust those rates down, which is where I think maybe that Mr. Arrowood was going. If we spread that burden out across those 7 classes, we're still going to be within that 1% ratio, even including the additional $50,000 of additional taxes coming from contractors into the overall system.
Now, I wasn't insinuating or implying that we do things right. I just,
On the rest of it, okay.
My concern and my point is that staff with more knowledge than myself needs to try to figure a way to make this more equitable.
And that's what I'm trying to do here on the fly. Is we're talking in total dollars. to make domiciled contractors pay a same dollar figure drops it to that 91 cents per thousand. But to do that, we lose 300,000 plus on the non-domiciled side, and we're only picking up, if you will, 50,000 on the domiciled side. So we're just, that's out of balance on the total scheme of revenue.
Well, I got that, but now one of the things that the contractors I've spoken with said, I can easily change where I'm headquartered.
And that is certainly a business decision.
And then we're going to wind up on the negative end of it.
Yeah, there's not going to be any offset. It's all going to be down there.
Do what?
Because if they move outside the city and do business in the city, they're going to pay that double rate. So we'll make up some ground
Yep,
on the job. Let me finish. On the job that they were
If you got, no.
All right, okay, listen.
No, well, listen, I'm going to make this point since, if you do $10 million worth of sales and you're outside the city, 100% of it's outside the city. You're not paying anything. You do a $1 million job inside the city, yeah, you're going to pay for it. But the guy that's inside the city is already paying the $10 million, on the $10 million. So any way you slice it, the city contractor is getting the shaft on it.
All right. We've hashed this out enough tonight. Valid points, well taken by staff and by council. We got a first and a second on this motion.
Yes.
This is a first reading tonight. I think there's been valid points made about this. This always goes back to the old balloon reference that we used 20 years ago when we were going through this. I mean, you squeeze it in one place and it just shifts the burden to another. You know, we've got to figure out a way to work within the confines of what we've got to come up with something that's reasonable within the framework that has been given us, and we'll look at those options before we move to second reading. First reading has come to us. We've got a motion and a second. Any further comments, discussion, or question in that regard?
I would be interested, since they played a big part in this, if the municipal association has any experience or feedback so far about this. I'd be interested to know what they.
And I think that would be appropriate. This has been this has been like making sausage. This has been in the works for 2 years. And I can't imagine the General Contractors Association hadn't been at the table at some point during all this. I know the realtors are happy with it. I know the insurance agents are happy with it. I know everybody else is happy with the new way it's set up. I just can't imagine that this escaped the attention of the general contractors. So we may want to seek some
Association was
information.
involved.
Excuse me?
The Home Builders Association was involved.
Okay.
And most of our home builders, they're not located in municipalities. That's why they have no issues.
I get it. I get it. Any other additional information in regards to the first reading of ordinance number 59-2021 at this point?
I'd like for Mike to be able to go ahead and explain what he was relating to.
That's okay, Ms. I just want to clarify a point about the, if they did go outside the city, it was actually to support your point, is that we would not see a drop-off because they're going to report the same revenue that they've been reporting for 3 years for work being done in the city. My point was actually in support of that, to say that revenue, we would not see a revenue loss there. What we would see the revenue loss in is that they don't, if they move out, they don't have to report all of their revenue for the work being done outside the city. That was
right.
I just wanted to clarify the point that we would not see a loss of revenue if we did decide to locate outside the city.
Right.
We might see a little bump if all things being equal, because now that work they're doing in the city would be paid at a double rate. But they would be only reporting at 5 million instead of 10 million. 5 million at a double rate instead of 10 million at
I understand that. And one final comment, Mayor, I'll be quiet. If we use that logic, if we use that, well, we're not going to see a major shift in revenue if these guys decide to move outside the city. Then to me, we're telling these businesses, that's your tough luck, because we're not trying. you know, if you're trying to adjust the rates, you're trying to do something. But if you just kind of say, you know, it's.
First reading of ordinance 59-2021. Ms. Duncan.
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin, Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Let's move on to item 6, Greer City Council 2022 meeting schedule. Information in that regard, Ms. Duncan, we've got it in the packet. Anything additional in regards to that schedule?
No, sir, no additional information.
You have that information in your packet. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
And a second. Floor is open for any discussion or questions in that regard. Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin, Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, we have a overview of the general election results from November 2nd, 2021. Ms. Duncan, are you going to give that to us this evening?
Yes, sir, this is just for information only to make it a matter of the minutes. These are the certified results from the November 2nd general election.
Those are contained in your packet. You have that information. You can see the clerk in regards to those results. Having no further stated business, we stand adjourned.